things which we have forgotten, especially one thing that we have forgotten, but can have an amazing impact on our life, because it's had on me, in the context of self-motivation. That activity, if you can initiate from today onwards or tomorrow onwards for sure, I can guarantee you, it will instill or influence you towards really not only getting self-motivated, but also getting ideas on how to really improve yourself further. What am I talking about? That which probably we have decreased. The activity which probably should have been happening, but it's decreased. And I put that activity in front of you with a question. In the last 7 days, in the last 15 days, in the last 1 month, or in the last 3 months, who amongst us has been reading something? I'm not talking about newspapers. I'm not talking about just magazines lying around. Has anyone been reading a book in the last 3 months? Please tell me.
I was reading the Jesus papers.
I'm curious, I'm not like sort of investigating, I'm just curious. For people who haven't read in the last 3 months, many of us don't have the habit of reading, okay? Including me. I like to write, but I guess, you know what, I use reading to sleep. So then you're wondering, Mayur Kalbag is talking about this reading. He himself falls asleep when he reads. Yes, because I read certain types of books which I know are so boring that I read and I fall asleep. But there are certain books which have changed my life. What am I talking about is called reading. But what? Novels? No. What I'm talking about, which I intensely believe that you can also develop, is reading autobiographies. Or reading biographies about successful people. And let me introduce this concept to you with examples. Have you heard of the iPhones and stuff? I'm sure you have. Yes. Apple computers. You know the person who was the founder of Apple? Steve Jobs. There are quite a few books about Steve Jobs. Forget the documentaries and movies. You can't learn the life of Steve Jobs in 2 hours. Read about people who have done something in life and have gone also through their own turmoils, their own failures. Whoever knows Steve Jobs or about Steve Jobs, poor chap, he's no more, he died of cancer. But when you read, I'm not going to go to YouTube and listen to his speeches, which is good to begin with, but read, because when I read, I realized this guy who created Apple was actually almost literally thrown out of the same company that he made. And by whom? Who influenced that change in decision to not have him? The marketing director of Apple. He influenced the other board of directors to get him out. He played a strategy. And who was his marketing director? He was actually the head of marketing for Coca-Cola. Who brought him to Apple? Steve Jobs. Just imagine you make a company, you make it successful, you want to make it grow, you get a marketing guy, the guy conspires and gets him out. I think that kind of frustration, that kind of depression, that kind of disappointment, just imagine. It was not about the money, he must have had money, but imagine the humiliation. So what does this guy do? When he's thrown out, he's literally asked to leave, right? So he leaves. He starts contacting some of his team members who have been still trustworthy with him, and he forms another company, which today is known as Pixar. That which makes the Toy Story and those movies, the cartoon. That company starts doing well. Apple starts falling down. And the same board of directors, they chuck the marketing guy out, and some of those directors go and plead to Steve Jobs, please come back. Steve Jobs he comes back and gets some of those board of directors also chucked out. What I'm talking about is, he's not some nice, he's a nice guy, but he knows what he wants to do. So it's layered. What I realized is the personality called Steve Jobs, and I said, I want to be like him. And there's nothing wrong, because you can always follow in the footsteps of successful people. Imagine what could be further than disappointment. I mean, the highest disappointment, you make your own company and you're chucked out of your own company here. Just imagine, it made me realize that some of the failures I'm going through is minuscule. I feel so depressed. My boss said something to me today. That guy was chucked out of his company and he's fought back, and you're sulking because you got an insulting statement that evening from a boss. Are you getting what I'm saying?
Yes.
When you read, you actually learn. You get influenced in this way because it influenced me. That is why I'm speaking in the way that I am. Because Steve Jobs also taught me something else. That's why I said read about people. He was the one who made me realize the critical importance of innovation. Do you know that? That if you look at all the laptops, there's one laptop which will always stand out. The iMac or the i-series, because of the innovation he brought in the way he made a typical boring computer look. What I'm talking about is something that you can learn from. Is he actually chose the best creative team. And his main intent was this, that we have a good product, but if you want to position it for the consumers, it has to look good. That's where I came to know the role and the importance of packaging. Branding, the visual aspect of a product. Are you getting my point?
Yes.
So when I speak to the HR of different companies, I package my content. I put things in a different way. Point number one, what I put is different, but the way I put also is different. Because that's my product, right? My trainings. So in some companies where I know that they're looking at stress management and motivation, I carry some equipment. I say this is what I do. So they actually see me doing, they actually see the stuff that I do in the training, I bring it to them. Now I'm not here to talk about myself, I'm actually telling you how inspired I have been with Steve Jobs because I read the book. I didn't know from a documentary that he also at some point of time had been to the Himalayas. Steve Jobs, when he was lost in life, I realized, wow, I'm not the only one. Because I was lost in my life, I didn't know where my life was going. Money-wise it was okay, salary you draw, but I was unhappy here. He had been to the Himalayas himself. So when you start reading about the life story of successful people, you realize it's not that easy. They've also been through their own ups and downs. And what they've been through probably is much more than what I'm going through. It makes you realize, I think I'm just crying for the heck of it. Let me now fight back. Are you getting? I think you are. Another person I always recommend you should read about is Richard Branson. He's one of those amazingly wacky kind of a businessman. He's failed many times. But he's made failure his strength. Have you realized? I don't know if you read, you'll come to know. He's used what he's learned from failure to start something else. And today he's one of the most successful entrepreneurs. Virgin Atlantic, Virgin Records are two of the companies that are doing extremely well. So when you read about Steve Jobs, you realize how he thinks. When you read about Richard Branson, you start thinking about how his mindset is, how his approach is towards failure. Don't you think it's beneficial for you also? I'm sure it is. Are there more? Yes, one more person I would like you to read about is this person who's called the Iron Man. You heard of the movie Iron Man? He's called the Iron Man of the real world. Elon Musk. Not the Musk. Elon Musk. He's one of the contemporary innovators of the world. And you can initially start YouTubing these people. But you have to have a book, because book has depth. Movies don't have the depth, they have beautiful visualizations. Like I had some friends who said to me, Mayur, you watch Harry Potter but read the book. Because there's so much more. But then I don't get inspired by Harry Potters. I get inspired by people who've done something in life. So Elon Musk is somebody who thinks beyond, literally. He's presently building a spaceship. He's that kind of a crazy guy. He's a millionaire because he's basically a techie. IT. He made something which was great, he sold it, he made millions. He's an innovator. Learn that. Because I believe, like somebody said, we have to be creative so that we are perceived as different, but we can actually come up with new ideas. The core is read autobiographies or biographies. You have a Mahatma Gandhi school here, correct?
Yes.
So, how many of you have read about Mahatma Gandhi? When you read, you come to know the depth of this personality, who symbolized simplicity. Understand one thing, friends. When I talk about this, I'm not going to say that everybody is perfect. Steve Jobs also was not perfect. But that also is a learning for us. He was quite arrogant, Steve Jobs, about certain things. But you realize that the amount of arrogance that he had was much less compared to the amount of other positives that he had. This is how you learn. Read about Mahatma Gandhi. In fact, I would urge you to read about another person whom you all probably spoke about, I think, Nelson Mandela. My God, I mean, the guy was in prison for 30 years or something. He comes out and he talks about peace. He doesn't have any grudge. Imagine the kind of maturity that he has, the kind of vision he has for South Africa. He says, I will sacrifice my temptation to have hatred for people who have tortured me and put me in jail because I'm seeing a new Africa. But only when you read, you come to know the details of it. Are you getting what I'm saying?
Yes.
If I keep telling you I'll become a bookstore, you find out. You know the easiest way? Amazon. What I say is, don't have excuses. Sir, I didn't get time to go to the bookstore and all. Go to USP, there go to a bookstore. I've been to USP. The point is, you can. Just convert a desire that may be now slowly burning within you to buy a book, convert that into action. If it's easy for you to straight away buy it online, get a book. Remember, the amount of money sometimes we spend on coffee at, what is that? Gloria Jeans or whatever. Gloria Jeans. Gloria Jeans, Levi's Jeans, whatever. Gloria Jeans. You may end up spending, say, 5, 10. Pick up a book here instead of one. Sometimes people think 10 times before buying a book. But at the drop of the hat, they'll go and pick up a cup of coffee or something. You have a cup of coffee, but don't have excuses for not buying a book. You may pay a couple of extra dollars, $50 to buy the book, but buy it because it will stick with you for the rest of your life. Coffees will have and go somewhere. Books will stay with you. Because every book has some knowledge to be shared with. But I'm purposely saying read books about other people's lives because that will motivate you. This session is not about how to develop the habit to read. I will say don't even read, but read these books which I also read. Another way of self-motivation is not only reading autobiographies and biographies, but also reading self-help books. Those books where people are teaching you, like a training, but in a written form. Like how to win friends and, where you get influence on how to do things. Maybe you can pick up a book on how to be a better time manager. You can pick up a book on the different skills of a leader, which are very specific to your own skills. But I still maintain that beyond, or rather compared to these books, reading autobiographies and biographies is more profound. I guarantee you it will bring a big influence to your life. I want to share this with you because I felt that many of us have lost touch with reading, but I was pleasantly surprised that quite a few of you are also reading.
Thanks to
Good, excellent. For the rest of the people also, make it up. Leke aao. Have it at home. You may not, and don't even read the whole book straight away because there are some people who read books to tell others I've read books. They want to show off. I finished this book. I finished that book. What is what food or what to finish? You got to read a chapter. I would say, they say an apple a day keeps the doctor away. I would say a chapter a day of proper reading, good reading, will keep both apple and doctor away. What I mean is, don't read to tell others. Read so that one chapter will influence you for that day. And also what I was taught, read when you read such books with a pencil. So you can underline some interesting things. That's how serious and sincere we must be about reading. So this is not a session where I just say, hey, you got to read. We're getting into the depth of it. Reading autobiographies and biographies, as well as reading some books which are self-help books on specific topics. Okay? Are you with me?